All right, I've covered this topic twice already, but each time it has exploded to new, ever-increasing heights. So it's time for a third foray into what can really only be described as a once-in-a-lifetime financial event, and truly, history in the making. How we got here is important, but it's not the main focus. To briefly describe the process for those that are very unfamiliar, Wall Street operates a web of complex financial strategies to turn a profit at the expense of average Americans. And one of those methods is short selling. Short selling is basically a calculated decision that a business might fail or struggle and consists of selling borrowed shares of that business with a promise to buy them back later on, hopefully at a cheaper cost or not at all, ideally. Short selling can also drastically reduce a company's stock price by creating downward pressure as a result of those often leveraged, which just means extending your financial power beyond what it actually is, sales. Wall Street hedge funds identify targets for short selling every single day, but one such target was GameStop. The struggling video game retailer was on the ropes owing to the pandemic and practically obsolete business models, but they weren't and aren't dead yet. Wall Street wanted them to die and placed massive short positions against the stock, causing it to fall and fall and fall and doubling down again and again and again, hoping that it would go under. To be clear, zeroing out a company is the best case scenario for a short seller on Wall Street because it means the company dies, and you literally just don't have to buy back those borrowed shares because they are worthless. GameStop has over 14,000 employees even after drastic layoffs during 2020, and this effectively means that hedge funds were taking a position to deliberately push the share price down and hopefully feast on the carcass of a business that again employs 14,000 people. That's the foundation. Now, enter Wall Street Bets. Wall Street Bets is an online community based primarily around YOLO stock plays and memes. It's not a shadow cabal of elite hedge fund executives, it's mostly just regular people having fun in an online community. In the coming days and weeks, you will be seeing coordinated attacks against this board and any others like it, and other groups as well, as alt-right, as incels. You will probably hear the word Gamergate or nihilist or Nazi. Do not listen to them. This is a group of people who joke about and invest in various stocks. That's all. And the community has exploded to new sizes since then, but when all this began, it was just retail investors communicating and having fun. Anyways, enter Wall Street Bets, who identified that GameStop was so massively overshorted. It was the most shorted stock in Wall Street history, in fact. It would be ripe for a short squeeze, which just means a rising price, which forces all those hedge funds with borrowed shares to buy them back. And a chain reaction drives up the price further as a result of those circumstances. For months, they bought what they could. And catalyzed by a positive announcement from GameStop about a new board member that everyone was very enthusiastic for, and some promising new strategies in 2021, the price finally took off. That's the beginning of financial history because the stock price went from being a pummeled, beleaguered value to something in the 20s, 30s, 50s, and even eventually now, hundreds. I'll spare everyone the technical analysis of how we get to such a point, but likely due to illegal behavior, though I can't say for certain, disclaimer, though it's highly probable, there had been so much short selling that these hedge funds couldn't cover their position. They basically couldn't buy, or if they could, it was costing them billions of dollars. The first casualty was Melvin Capital, whose short position was so brutalized they ended up needing a cash infusion of $2.8 billion just to stay alive when the price was in the 60s. That cash infusion came from two other financial giants, Point72 and Citadel, and that's where things got really bad. This all happened early in the process, the 22nd of January 2021 to be exact, but this milestone helped catapult the online retail investor movement into a global spotlight. I'll have to repeat myself here yet again from a prior video, but people are searching for a cause right now. Us versus them, left versus right, retail versus Wall Street, and the idea of hedge fund billionaires losing everything when the financial abuse that they have delivered to the American people for decades is only ever met with government bailouts and never consequences, it was extremely appealing. What started as a savvy financial play became something so much more. This was about the retail investors who were looked down on, degraded, despised, and ridiculed by the hedge funds and brokers versus Wall Street themselves, the ones who rig the game, financially abuse the populace, and get away with it each and every day. This wave of interest in GameStop and other stock tickers was a veritable tsunami. Not just domestic, it went global. People all around the world started to buy and hold with the express intention of making Wall Street bleed, making them pay in any way possible for the decades of malfeasance and their history of literally crashing the economy, ruining lives, and getting paid for it through taxpayer dollars afterwards. The following week, beginning on the 25th of January 2021, things got even worse. The buying pressure was so immense it began to spill over to other short-sold tickers. AMC, Blackberry, Bed Bath & Beyond, Nokia. The list was very long, and there are many out there even now who proclaim these as psychological attacks from the institutions against the collective buying power that was focused primarily in the beginning on GameStop by way of distraction. But I'm not really in a position to say one way or another. Point is, the buying pressure mounted. Stocks were rising by 2, 3, even 4 times their previous value in a single day. And if a hedge fund needed to be bailed out after the price hit 60, what do we think was happening as the price hit 400? The support for this endeavor in online communities absolutely exploded. Millions of members joining message boards and forums to be a part of what was happening. And this is where the media, the corrupt, groveling, worthless media, as well as the hedge funds that were under fire, began retaliating. The list of their responses will only grow from here, but already includes price manipulation after hours, when most retail investors aren't even allowed to trade the stock, where they short sell back and forth between each other to drive the price lower and lower without an abundance of volume, and scare their enemies into submission. It also includes articles written, some of them forced to retract even already, about how Wall Street Bets has connections to the alt-right, because what started as a simple financial play, driven by gamers, memers, and Reddit users, had become all-out information and financial warfare. That's not even hyperbole here. You'll see. One of the first and biggest retaliations occurred against the Wall Street Bets Discord server. I don't know the exact size of this community at the time of its suspension, but it was massive and growing fast. With that many users, there will be bad apples among them, and one user circumvented the moderation bots using a foreign alphabet, I believe, to type a racial slur. And that is what was used to nuke the entire server. You can call me a conspiracy theorist, you can say it's not true or highly speculative, but this had nothing to do with hate speech. This was an effort to shut down the communication channels of a financial enemy executed by powerful institutions. Postscript update: after Discord got absolutely slammed for their decision from every conceivable angle, they have reopened the Wall Street Bets Discord and are aiding them in the moderation effort, something that should have been the only approach ever, rather than banning a server with hundreds of thousands of members and still growing. The collective voices on this have gotten so large and so clamorous, they are becoming impossible to ignore. But that's just the start. Next, brokers began to limit certain functions in retail investor accounts. They began to systematically restrict the trading process and even experienced perfectly coordinated trading outages right as the prices of multiple tickers began to skyrocket on Wednesday. Forgive me if I have the timeline slightly off, it's been a hectic few days. Still though, not done. After-hours manipulation continued to occur, and eventually, Thursday the 28th, the biggest attack yet was launched. Robinhood, followed by other brokers such as Webull, for example, shut down the purchasing options for GameStop, AMC, and various other stock tickers. They would let you sell, but they would not let anyone buy. This was the nuclear attack, and everyone around the world can see them for what they truly are. But the problem with internet psychology is that telling people you can't do this will only make them do it more. This is where, for many people, it stopped being about the money and truly became class warfare, waged in the only way and through the only medium that they could find, when a system is entirely rigged against them. Remember Citadel, the ones who bailed out the corrupt Melvin Capital, who had heavily positioned their entire firm on a company with 14,000 employees going completely bankrupt? Well, Citadel is effectively the owner and puppeteer of Robinhood, the app that many retail investors were using to execute this very push. The mechanism for this is called payment for order flow, or PFOF, and for some brokers it's a tiny fraction of their income, but for Robinhood it's the vast majority. Their no-fees model relies on this payment for order flow method, and it gets routed through Citadel, who has a vested interest in stopping the people from making money on GameStop because they bailed out the firm that had heavily shorted it and was going bankrupt. Ignoring the fact that PFOF is quite literally the act of selling trade data to a firm before it gets to users, basically allowing them to cheat the system and screw over retailers no matter what every single day, this buying halt, not selling, just buying, for most of Thursday, which cascaded to other brokers as well with further restrictions, outlined once and for all that the game is being played and managed by criminals. And this reality was made so glaringly obvious it can no longer be ignored. Not only was buying halted, but rumors are swirling, and I can't confirm this, I have to stress that Robinhood was enacting forced closure of open GameStop positions for certain users on their platform depending on size. They locked the populace out of the platform and then offloaded large volume holders' wallets right into the lowest price point that day, causing them to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, right during the time that the market was only accessible to hedge funds and other Wall Street institutions. Immediately, a class action lawsuit has been filed. There's an app already developed to make signing onto it easier because they're contending with half the internet at this point, and I'll link that down below, the app. And millions of people began the exodus from Robinhood servers because their position had been made brutally clear. They stand for the profit of Wall Street. They will deliberately and maliciously attack their own user base when the hedge funds are threatened. And one small shred of justice here, it has been discovered that within hours of this decision, Robinhood was drawing on lines of credit from banks to stabilize their financial position. One can only hope that they feel the actual consequences adequately. Robinhood has issued a statement now about how this is for your own good, how this is just a result of market volatility and not because a market maker, Citadel, told them to. But rumors continue to swirl that Sequoia Capital, the White House, and other financial institutions exerted pressure on brokers to close trading for certain stock tickers and allow them to exit the positions that, should they be trapped in, would bankrupt them completely, like they fucking deserve. But now we arrive at bipartisan support. When you, as a corrupt financial parasite, land so far on the wrong side of this battle that AOC, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump Jr. all agree, well, we might finally have pushed the system to such a precarious extreme, change might actually occur. Bipartisan calls for Robinhood and other brokers to be investigated, lawsuits opened, Department of Justice letters from attorney generals, and the list goes on and on. A growing pool of celebrity personalities and politicians are lending their voices as well, because even if some of them do not believe in this cause, even if they do this purely for the accolades and reverence it might bring from the masses, the battle lines have been drawn so deep, I can't really see how this dissipates without actual consequences. Led by the likes of Elon Musk, Portnoy, Chamath, Mark Cuban, and many more, this is only just beginning to grow. So many people were trying to access the Southern District of New York's class action lawsuit page, it crashed, and the effects of this are just beginning. It may seem insignificant, but the Robinhood app went from a near 5-star rating to 1 star on Google Play, and the tech giant then deleted over 100,000 negative reviews. This is particularly funny because leaving a negative review after a broker locks you out of buying, leaving only the option to sell so that their criminal partners can recoup losses and get out of positions that they should never have taken in the first place, well, that's about as legitimate a reason to leave a negative review as any I could possibly think of ever, especially when that policy craters the price and destroys the value of its customers. Here's what they think. Here's what they really think, and what they are even saying on national television.
The reason the market is doing what it's doing is people are sitting at home, getting the checks from the government, okay? And this fair share is a bullshit concept. It's just a way of attacking wealthy people. And, I think it's inappropriate. We all got to work together and pull together.
America needed a unifier. We are at each other's throats recently, and this might very well be that event. Everyone knew the system was rigged, but it's never been shown quite like today. The Wall Street suits were losing at their own game through the rules that they created, so they changed those rules. It was quite possibly illegal, it was blatantly obvious, and the only effect it will have when a global movement of everyday people have decided to make you bleed is to enrage them. Political opposition is uniting on the topic, even if that remains a surface-level charade, which it quite possibly is, and the momentum is only increased every time they attack our communities and our dignity. It's not about the money anymore. Sure, for some it is, and yes, not all hedge funds are hurting from this. In fact, some are joining the momentum on the side of the people, if only to feast on the corpses of their peers who fall, like the disgusting parasites that they are. But the past 2 weeks have shown with clarity like never before just how criminal these people are, just how much they communicate, manipulate, lie, cheat, and steal. Those that play a rigged game are bad enough. Those that play that rigged game only to change the rules when they lose, when they're beaten, when they're inferior, they are worse. They are failures as men, as women, and as human beings. In a system that deliberately destroys the livelihood of everyday citizens for the profit of those with more than they could already spend, it's time for their lives to be destroyed. Legally, by the very same rules that they created. My fear now is that this coordinated manipulation has allowed the hedge funds to close out high-risk positions. The trade lockdown, the 60% price drop today, and most importantly, the downtime where momentum was halted, might have crushed the movement's ability to inflict further damage. We might be running headlong into a trap that's been laid, since the conditions have been altered and the rules changed. But this is a moment for the history books, a Netflix documentary, or an episode of Billions. This is a time where the mask came off, the people saw the truth, even if they already knew deep down. And hopefully, we can make them fucking bleed. Financially, of course. If you want to support, links down below. Join Odyssey. It's a YouTube alternative that helps creators far more. That's linked. Sign up there. Also check out Locals to keep the channel going past tech demonetization, because the way I've just talked, the rhetoric I've just used, it's very possible that they will hit the channel with this, or for this, with a strike or demonetize. Who knows? And if you want, there's other links as well. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.